What's up, guys and gals? Welcome to a special edition of Extreme Nerd Table. I have Randall with me right now, and I have Anthony with me right now. Here's Randall, here's Anthony, and then we have our special guest from Damn Cursed Children, Howard Wong and Josh Stafford. Here's Howard, and here's Josh. So, thanks for coming, guys. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. And then issue 5 dropped this week, so I was really excited when issue 5 dropped. Read it, and I got a couple of questions about issue 5 actually, since I read it. Is there gonna be a? I know some people are gonna ask after they read this. Is there gonna be another volume of Damn Cursed Children? Is there gonna be a volume 2?
Maybe.
That's a great question. As for a great answer is we would love to.
Okay.
We are working on things. I guess that's very beating around the bush. We have talked to certain people at a certain publisher about it. We haven't finalized anything yet, but everybody would love to continue to do things within that world for sure. How's that for a roundabout indirect answer?
All right. And then how did the idea of Damn Cursed Children come to be?
That's Josh's fault for cursing my kids. I wish I was joking, but it's true. I'll start the story off, and I'll let Josh chime in when he actually says those infamous words to me. So imagine back in the past, I have kids, and they're like in daycare, so they bring back the plague on a weekly basis. Yay! My wife and I basically were sick like for months on end, to the point where our friends were used to us being sick. But at this point, for some reason, it hit me hard, and I was like bedridden. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I was like throwing up and things coming out of every orifice, kind of crazy ass deal. And of course, of all the things that happened, Josh calls me up, and you would think, hey, Josh is caring about Howard. He's dying. No, Josh's first question was, hey, are you going to the con like this month? Like Fan Expo? I was like, yeah. Can I come? I guess if I'm alive, sure. Yeah, you can come. You can, help out, and I'll bring you in. So, and then Josh asks me, "What you can get comment."
I was just surprised he was still sick because whatever, I had spoken to him 2 or 3 weeks before, and he was really sick, and he was still really sick. And having a number of friends who have kids, my mom works in daycare, stuff like that. So I just joked with him, and I was like, your damn cursed children got you sick again. And a light bulb went over his head, and he just said, kind of jokingly, he said, oh, that's a good title for something. That's a good title for a comic. And I said, you could have it. Go ahead. And he was busy and sick. So he said, I'm too busy. You go write something up. So if I get credit for the title, Howard gets credit for thinking it could actually be something. I get credit for putting together a rough outline, and then Howard gets credit for bringing it to life. And then a short 10 years later, we actually have a comic book. So, and it all just started like a lot of inspiration, just on a whim, on a random little sarcastic quip. And now we have a completed comic book series out of it.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome. The other question is, how did you and Howard meet?
Oh my God!
I love this story because I watched other interviews.
Yeah. First, hey Heather, how's it going? Heather is on online right now. Heather is actually the master and commander of King's Con in Kingston, a great convention that I'll be on there. When am I on there? In June, near the end of June, I think. Anyways, how I met Josh? Well, go back in time in 2007. I keep forgetting the year. I gotta look it up one day. Is it 2007 or 8? 7?
I went 2 years in a row, so I think it was 2007. That makes sense.
I think so. So I was there.
Like
so I was there at San Diego. So I was there in San Diego Comic-Con, and wow, where I was staying with a bunch of people who I didn't meet before. It didn't really work out. It was interesting because I went to the room. I'm like, where am I sleeping? On 2 cushions on the floor. Yeah, no, what? So I was like, well, San Diego, whatever. And I was like, in the morning, I'll go to the image booth, and I'm like, why are you like so tired? I'm like, don't ask. and I bumped into some people. And this is really funny. I bumped into some people I met in Toronto. I'm from Toronto, so I met them like I think the same week at another event from the Beguiling. A Beguiling had an event, so I met them like a couple of days ago. They're like, "What's going on? Where, how's it going?" I'm like, "I was in a situation." Like, "Oh, okay." So the next day they met me again, and they asked me politely if I would like to share a condo with them and share the costs. And I would have, more than 2 cushions to sleep on. I'm like, "I'm done. Let's go. Let's do it," because this is not working out. So I go there. It's a nice con. We walk in. The complex is nice. You walk in. It's like a Melrose Place. Like the center has like an open foyer. It's hollowed in the center, so it's really nice. So you go in. It's like, like this is about 5 minutes away from the con. I'm like, this is like too good to be true. Something has to happen. I'm gonna get mugged by these guys or some shit. Whatever. We'll find out. So I'm like, where am I sleeping? It's like, well, this is my room, and that's Attila's room. Well, I was staying with Tom Fowler, who's a great artist. Attila Artijan, who's also a great artist. So Attila has that room. So I see the couch. I'm like, I assume that's the couch is mine. Like, so this is me? He's like, no, that's our friend's Josh. I'm like, oh, is Josh here? No. He's physically not gone. But you can't sleep on the sofa because it's like, oh, so where am I sleeping? In the walk-in closet. Like, they're like, yeah, funny. No, seriously, where am I sleeping? Like, yeah, seriously, you're going to sleep in the walk-in closet. They showed me to the walk-in closet. And I was like, and I literally debated if I wanted to go back to sleep on 2 cushions or a walk-in closet. And it wasn't a really long decision. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to sleep in a walk-in closet. Why not? So the next day, Josh shows up, and I was actually up making coffee or breakfast and staring at people in Starbucks because we had this giant window. Like, it was like from ceiling to the ground into the floor window that stared right into Starbucks from our living room. So when we're making breakfast, we're staring at people, getting Starbucks and lining up for Starbucks, and we would see, artists and writers there too, which is really cool. So Josh walks in when I was doing that with one of the guys, and they're like, "This is Josh." I'm like, "Oh, so that's that asshole who took the sofa." And Josh had his giant nerd backpack with him, and he's like, "So who are you?" I'm like, "I'm Howard." Like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I write After the Cape." Like, wait, and he dropped his backpack and he rifles through it. He whips out issue 1 of After the Cape. He's like, "You write this?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Why do you have this crap in your backpack?" And Josh can complete that part of the story.
Well, just that's the more fascinating, wild, unbelievable thing that, everybody, all us nerds know what a previews catalog looks like. And out of the million comics in there, I picked out After the Cape just because I thought it looked cool. So it was a compliment to Howard before I met Howard. And then bumping into him in San Diego is not too far-fetched, but that of the half dozen comics I had in my backpack to read on the plane, one was his, and then we were roommates. So that was the most wild thing of that little chain of events. But yeah, so we met as roommates at Comic-Con in an amazing, it was Airbnb before Airbnb, but like Howard said, it was 5 minutes from the con. The price was reasonable because we were splitting everything. So we could, eat breakfast there, bring a bag lunch, and then maybe afterwards go to a bar or something. But the amount of money we saved by being able to eat cereal for breakfast and then walk to the con, because some poor chumps had to hop on a train or a bus, come from a hotel 45 minutes, an hour away. So it was pretty great. And if you bought something like a big poster, you could just like walk it home, get rid of it, come back to the con. So it was a pretty good setup. And even though there was 4 of us shoved in there, it worked. It was good.
Yeah, it was actually a great location. I'm pretty sure it's gone by now, but it was like the perfect location because if you were going to meet anyone for a meeting, your Starbucks is literally through your window, right? So it's that close to Starbucks. So I think we saw some meetings between like editors and some artists like during lunchtime, like no, during breakfast time. I think I saw some meetings that were like, if we just walked into Starbucks, we could listen in what's going on. But because we know who these people are, we kind of have an idea what's going on. It was really weird. We had the convention happening before we were at the convention, but it was an interesting way to meet Josh. And I tried to, and that's so weird. I tried to take the effort to get to know him because I knew the other guys a little bit better, a little bit, but not a lot. And because he wasn't working the convention, I could have lunch with him. So I thought I had time for lunch one day. Out of I don't know how many days I was there for, actually. I can't remember, but I was there for the full slot and plus a day after. I'm like, Josh, we're going to have lunch this day. And I'm going to get to know you because it's really cool that you had my book, and then, see, we have any more interest with each, any more interest that we share. So I scheduled it, and I didn't show up because I found out that I didn't have lunch. It's like, you don't have lunch today. I'm like, yes, it is. Like, no, we changed it. When? This morning. Wow, really?
Because you were the low guy on the totem pole at the time. Pretty much.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did the wrong things. Like, I'm always available. No. No, that was not a smart move from my part. But I didn't mind. I mean, like, you'd see fans and stuff like that, and people can find you. So there's access to me and ask me questions, whatnot. So that's cool. So poor Josh, I couldn't reach because I had my Canadian cell phone with me, and I'm like trying to text him, and I'm like, it's not going through. Because I don't have enough money, and I'm like, shit, Josh is gonna be so mad. And then I live with him in the same condo. What we're gonna do? But then hours later, Josh comes back, and he just stormed like I don't know him well, so I'm like, is he going to slug me? Because he can do it. I deserve it. And he was like storming towards the table, and everybody's like looking at him at the front table, like, why is this guy like so aggressively walking towards us? Because no one does that, right? And then he shows me this giant ass Simon Beasley art book, and then he starts walking away. I was like, okay, that's kind of not what I expected, but better than getting hit. So I opened up the art book, and it was signed by Simon Bisley, which was really cool. But the inscription inside said, fuck you, Howard. Simon Beasley. So I had to call Josh back, and I'm like, what the hell happened to you? And what the hell? What the hell? What? So Josh stands there and then tells me the story, which he can tell himself here.
If anyone's been to San Diego or even a Comic-Con half the size, a quarter of the size, the best thing about it is if you're doing something, you're missing something. And at San Diego, it's overwhelming. Like if you're at a panel or at a movie screening or at a signing, you're genuinely missing 6 other things you want to do. So when I didn't cross paths with Howard, I was pretty sure he got stuck doing something. I wanted to go check out the heavy metal booth because at the time it was owned by Kevin Eastman. So I just wanted to go over and check it out. And there was a lovely editor there, and I chatted with her, and she said, aren't here at the moment, but she'll be back soon. Right on cue, Simon shows up. And if anyone's ever seen him, especially a decade or 12 years ago, he's this big guy, and he looks like Lobo. Like he looks like 1990s Lobo with a leather jacket and big shaggy hair. If you just painted his face, he would look exactly like him. And nice. So he was busy doing stuff. And then he looks at me, and the lady says, oh, this young man wants to meet you. And he asked if I had a cigarette. And I laughed, and I said, oh, I don't smoke, but I never have wished that I smoked more. And he laughed, and he said, oh, come out with me. I'll have a smoke. So I proceed to follow Simon Beasley out of the con, and it's a huge space. So in the 10-minute walk to find an outside, we pass by 24 people who are all shaking hands, hugging him, doing all that stuff. He's just like, he's the belle of the ball. Go outside, watch him have a smoke. We chat. Then he goes, hey mate, you want to go for a drink? And I swear it's like 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning. And I go, I don't drink. And he laughs at that. Then I go to the bar with him. He buys me a Coke, and we sit for, I think, like 2.5 hours and just chat about Canada. And I had a Ramones shirt on, so we chatted about music and all. Like I remember that because we chatted about the Ramones. So he says, oh hey, he used the British term of a rucksack. He said, can you smuggle back a 6-pack of beer into the con for me in your rucksack? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he gets a 6-pack of beer from the little hotel corner store, puts it in my backpack, smuggles it back in, go back into the con. And then I'm chatting, and I was like, oh, I just wanted to buy a book and get you to sign it. And if anyone knows con life, they know that often the celebrity or the artist is way easier to talk to than the guard who's making sure they only talk to everybody for 5 minutes or only sign one thing. So he like timidly looks over his shoulder to his editor or the handler, whoever it was, grabs like 6 books, puts them up on the table, signs them for me, draws me a sketch of Lobo in my little sketchbook that I had, and then says to me, what's your friend's name again? And I go, because I said, oh, I'm so glad I couldn't hook up with my friend for lunch. I go, Howard. And he writes Howard. And Bees draws like a kindergarten kid. Like he holds the Sharpie really weird, like, and just all making eye contact the whole time because he's like a professional. Just draws Lobo, this beautiful, like, chaotic sketch of Lobo, and puts "F you, Howard" on it. And he goes, "That's for your friend. There you go." And he gives me like $200 in books and waves me away. And he goes, "Nice meeting you, mate. Have a good day." Shake his hand, and it's just lovely meeting. And one of the best con stories ever. And so that's why I got to, and Howard didn't know me very well. So like, I am not a angry or intimidating person, but I got to holding back a smirk. I got to like storm up to his table and put the book down and pretend to be angry. And he got this, we both got amazing souvenirs because Howard had to stand me up for lunch. So in the alternate universe where we had lunch, that awesome thing wouldn't have happened. So it was worth it. It was worth being stood up.
Yeah, it was that was the moment. I think that moment was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be friends with Josh. That book went into my hands, and when I flipped that cover, I'm like, we're gonna be friends. But you know what? The funny thing was, I think it was the last day I actually went to the heavy metal booth to try to see if I can catch Kevin Eastman, and it was weird. I don't know why, but no one cared. No, I shouldn't say no one cared, but no one bothered him. He was literally in front of his table, just hanging out. So I asked him, "Are you busy? You have time to chat for a bit?" And he's like, "Yeah." We went talking. He looked at my badge, like, "Hey, what do you write?" And I told him what I wrote. And he's like, he literally, you think that people would just say that, and then that was part of the conversation. He took out a pad of paper and wrote down the title of that book that I wrote. And I was like, "Holy shit!"
Oh, cool.
He actually wrote it down. He actually gives a shit. And it was like not just mine; it was a bunch of other titles, right? So that's really cool, right? And then eventually he got me a sketch, which was really cool that he did, because I was like waiting for Simon Beasley to show up, and he was like I think an hour or two late for his signing. So he gave me a sketch, which you can actually see on my Instagram account. I posted it up. I found it as of late, and then I got a Lobo from the Biz as well. And he's right. Biz does not look at his sketch pad, your sketch pad, when he does that. It is the most creepy ass thing how he does that without looking. He will just look at you and keep talking to you, and he keeps drawing. It's like, how? Because you're just shocked. You're like, how the hell are you doing that? And it looks really cool, and not like, what the hell? What?
It's like a piano player not looking at the music, right? Like he's done it so many times. He can just knock it out there.
Muscle memory.
Yeah. But I think the last thing I don't know if he's like, it was really funny because the last thing I did, I said to Biz was, it's like, I'm Howard. He's like, I'm Josh's Howard. And he took him like a split second to figure what that meant. He looked at me and he's like, he lifted up his sunglasses and then, "Fuck you." And I was like, "Yep, I'm going back to that table. Bye." That was like vindication. I'm like, so the story was true. but it was one of these small moments I had with. I mean, there's a lot more after that. Oh my god, it's like Josh's life is insane, man. Like his nerd story just keep going. It's like he would leave, like even at like Toronto Fan Expo, he would like jump up and leave my table for like 5 minutes. He'll come back, it's like, "Guess who I met?" I'm like, "I don't know. You left like 5 minutes. Who can you meet?" It's like, "Del Toro." I hugged Del Toro. I'm like, "Yeah, what?" He's not in the docket. No, he was just hanging around. I just yelled his name and he gave me a hug. Damn it.
That's awesome.
But it's like you, because you're stuck behind the table. Like, I kind of feel like I want to leave my table and not do this and walk around and find people too. But he has so many wicked, amazing stories. But he's unpretentious. That's why I love like Josh. Is like he doesn't go, "Look at who I met." He just so happened to meet him. And Josh is like one of the most genuine guys I know in the nerd world, and it's amazing. Because some people, they purposely nerd out and they show off and stuff like that, which is totally fine. I get it, because you're a big fan, and I sometimes do that too. But he's like so down to earth with his stuff that people go, "Did he meet him?" Like, "Yeah, for real." I'm like, "Yeah." Why is he not freaking out? I don't know. Because he'd be like, "I'm not Del Toro." He'd be like reading a comic. It's like, "Yep, I did that." But it's not like he's cocky. To him, it just happened. It so happened to be, and it happened. But other people will be freaking out. But so it's just so awesome and weird at the same time. I think I'm gonna like. I see a message here from John Lover 1, but I'm not sure which T-shirt do you want to look at.
Yeah, I did. I've been
You
getting
can tell
them
us
a
whose
lot.
T-shirt you want to
Yeah,
see. I think we can.
yeah,
We're all wearing T-shirts. We're
Yeah.
all wearing
Yeah,
nerd
so which
shirts.
T-shirt do you want to see?
yeah.
Let's all do it. I'll just do mine again here. This is a samurai
I've got Hawkeye on.
version of Darth Vader. Oh shit! Really? Oh, cool, man. That's
All
really awesome. There you go.
nerds all the time.
There you go. No,
All right.
yeah. Well, yeah.
What? Randall, Anthony, got any questions for Howard and Josh? I got a couple more, but I'm wondering if you guys got any questions for them.
I have a question. So let's tell our audience who might not be familiar with your work, if you can give us an elevator pitch of the story.
Ooh, damn
Sure.
straight.
Do you want me to do it, or
Josh,
you want to do it? I can do it.
Either
You
one.
can do it. You can do it. I'll just do a better one afterwards.
Aha. So, Damn Cursed Children is the day in the life story of 5 strangers who one day wake up to be in a world where inexplicably all the children have become rampaging monsters. That's the elevator pitch.
Okay. It's a black and white book, correct?
Correct.
Who's the artist on the book, and have they done all 5 issues so far?
Yeah, that's a find from Howard, a very talented fellow named Robin Simon Ing. And by lucky happenstance, even though he's not a big fan of the genre, I think his stuff looks a lot like either EC stuff or the kind of oversized Marvel horror, those magazines from like the 70s. In the comic itself, even if you didn't notice a few like flat screen TVs or cell phones, you might think it was from that era. So Robin was going to work with Howard on a project, and that's how Howard found him to work on this one.
And would you describe the genre as completely horror, or does it have some sci-fi or some other elements in there?
I would say action horror, no
Yeah.
sci-fi. That not that I consciously am aware of. Now you make me think about it. Did we put any sci-fi elements in it? Not really. No, not like no techie stuff. No blue sparkly stuff like another movie.
And without spoiling it, has the reason behind the children turning into raging monsters, has that been hinted at or revealed? Because I haven't read the book, so I'd like to know. Inquiring minds.
That's something I'm inclined not to completely answer, because that would kind of like ruin possibly the storyline at the end. But thing is, we are both fans.
Do you have it in mind how they became?
We both have different things in mind.
I can answer that. To be honest, no, because my biggest influence for stuff like that is doesn't need an origin story. So like I love George Romero so much, and even though I always jokingly, pompously say that this is not a zombie story because they're not crawling out of graves, you don't got to shoot them in the head. This is more of a snap your fingers and monsters magically happen story. So I won't say whether or not things are explained, but I love Night of the Living Dead, where in that movie, it just happens. And so in this world, in issue 1, 3 pages in, the bad is happening. And whether that's magic or chemical waste or a meteorite flies over, I like the kind of stories that don't over explain, just kind of go with it as it happens. So that's me anyhow.
Well, that's the beauty of that. Is when we were working on this, we thought about trying to nail it down, and then we realized, because of all the different ways we could nail it down, it didn't make us happy. It wasn't satisfying for the story. And then what we found is, like, because there's so many possibilities of it happening, of reasons for it to happen, it's even better that way, leaving it being interpreted that way. If to answer the question of, do we have things in mind, we did at the time when we were working on it, for sure. I still have my old notes where I'm like, these are the 3 top that I think would be making the most sense for this. But as we progressed in the story and how it went, it kind of changed the direction of where I would want to see that happen if the story drives towards that. Right now, it doesn't, because what made us really happy, excited about writing the story, isn't the why. It was more like, what the frick do we do now aspect. Because it's that drop of that. I mean, it's that moment where, I guess it sounds weird, but it's sort of like when you write the moment you know you're going to get punched in the face.
Right.
What do you do? This time does not slow down from the guy trying to sock it to you. So do you take it? Do you duck? Do you punch back? What do you do? Because you're not really thinking, you're reacting. And that's the whole point of this, is because no one would technically have a plan of action for anything remotely close to this. So you're just reacting. So it's just people reacting. And then when there is a pause or a lull where you're not trying to be eaten alive, then you question everything that you just did. And that's the whole point of it. That's what drove us to do this, because we love that part of the story, and we kept on expanding that part. Then we realized this is the best part of the story. Why do we because we follow the no offense to them, the normal formulaic ways of telling this kind of story. You introduce all the characters, you introduce the reason why, and then it slowly builds up, and then you have the climax of it happening, and then whatever. We know everybody who's into horror knows that formula. I know that formula. I just mentioned it within 2 seconds. But if you put it on its head and do the reversing, let's start at the worst possible moment. Where would it go from there? And that question was answered, from us, and that's what we did. That's how we drove it home, and that's why we love it. And I don't know. Hopefully, we'll be getting like a lot of positive responses. So we're happy that people, jumped on board with our insanity of going, let's start at the worst possible moment and see where we go from here.
Yeah, well, the best horror leaves you guessing. You don't have to worry. You don't have to wonder how the aliens got there, or how the children turned into monsters, or how the parents started killing their children, or any of that stuff. The best horror ideas are always, we're setting up for suspense. These folks have to survive. And like you said, they don't have time to worry about the who, what, where, when, and how this happened. It's just, this is the shit show we're living with, and we got to get through it. So,
exactly.
And does it from a person who hasn't read it, is it the children that are infected? Are they a certain age and under, or is it just, how does that work? Is
Age
it
and
12
under,
and
yeah.
under, 8 and under? What is it?
Correct. Yeah. So our youngest character in the book is a young teenager. So
Okay.
So it's all kids. So she's the youngest person that we see, and she's like 13 or 14 years old.
So it's puberty driven. Anyone past puberty, they don't get infected.
That's kind of the hint. Yeah, like it's little kids. Yeah,
because we're all infected by something else past puberty anyway. So
yeah. So it's like, and then there may or may not be ideas for where we go in, because this, like sometimes when you're writing something like this, you think not worst case scenario, but you're like, this could be the only story we tell. So I really like it. You hear filmmakers say this sometimes, and they say like, we really wanted to concentrate on, this is the movie, we might not get a sequel.
Sure.
And so for me, these 5 issues have a beginning, middle, and an end. And if there is never anything else in the damn cursed world, that's okay. This story is it. But there's a lot of other stories out there on this planet that we can tell. But I always remember, I think it was Sam Raimi, and he goes, no, I promise this. He goes, when we did Spider-Man, we did not know if it would be a big hit. We didn't know whether it would be Batman or the Rocketeer. So we wanted to make a story. So it is, you can just watch that. That's Spider-Man's story. And so that's kind of like this. We just were like, yeah, this is the story.
All right, Randall, you got any questions for him?
Yeah. Is this the first time you two have collaborated together on a comic book?
How we two collaborate in a comic book? We yell and scream at each other through the microphones. No. We actually, I don't know. It's really, we never had a direct plan of how we were going to do this. but we used to use Google Docs, and to be frank, we just talk it out through social media, and we never really used the phone a lot. We actually just typed to each other mostly, I think.
Okay,
through
that's cool.
Facebook and stuff, but was never ever like the moments where like, this is my idea, this is what's happening, I don't care, you're not deleting it, F you, and that was it. We never had that.
No, I
Emails
think
you
when
another
you're-
Simon Beasley book.
Yeah.
Yeah, did I just leave? Did I just pop out?
No,
there?
no.
Okay,
You're
Just
good.
froze for a second.
You just froze for a second. That's all.
Nope.
The damn cursed internet.
Exactly. So it's more like a collaboration of this is my idea, does it hold water? And it's like we play each other's devil's advocate, and that's what made us better writers, because Josh will come out with an idea. I'm like, well, how would you answer these things? And I would come up with an idea. He would do exactly the same thing, and it was never like, oh, you're dumb, this is not good, you don't understand it. It's more like, you're right. How can I make this better to address that? So we kept in like, it wasn't purposely trying to push each other forward and better, but that's what ended up happening. And poor Robin, because it was after we come up with this scene, sort of like, can a human being draw this and not die? Because we have some scenes where it was like insanely amount of details that you needed. When you have like a bunch of children, outside scenes with a bunch of cars, it's sort of like, that's a lot of like hard drawings, because you're drawing a lot of children in mid-action plus cars. One car alone is really hard to draw. You're making it perfectly look right, perspectives and everything. But having a bunch of them, it's sort of like, are we doing this to him? Because this is just one of the panels on this page right now. So every so often I would shoot the working script to Robin. I'm like, are you okay to draw this? Because if not, we'll find a way to make it much easier, because this is kind of insane. It's like, oh no, I got this. It's cool. Okay, because we have another scene with a whole auditorium full of people and kids, like a whole bunch of people. It's like, yep, I'm good. I'm like, God, you're awesome. Okay. So every time you see an insane panel or scene, I literally, because I understand it. I get it. I don't want to like kill somebody with art, right? So I always ask, like, are you comfortable doing this? Because for whatever reasons, it's not necessarily skillable, but time and whatever, because people have other things to do in their life. So I always asked him, but he kept on saying, bring it. I'm like, okay. so because if you read all 5 issues, you can see that we kept on nudging it further to see when he was gonna break. When Robin will like go, no guys, fuck it, no. But he never said no. So it was sort of like,
here's some of the art that we can bring up right here. Yeah.
So like that.
Look at that. It's crazy.
That's like this one panel. I'm like, are you sure? Because when we read it, it's just like a couple of sentences, right? So it's
like he could have drawn that with 50 less people in it, but it looks so great that he's just put all the detail.
Okay, I got a crazy question. Would you guys ever come out with a colored version of this? Or like, how The Walking Dead has a, updated and they put color to it. Would you guys ever do that to this?
I'm gonna well, I can say right now, Robin would like to try to color this.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I kind of like it in black and white, because if you
I do too. Yeah, I do too.
Because when you color it, you might it sounds weird. It sounds like it's like colors are bad, but it might get all muddy with the details that he has, because if you look at his line work, it's like so crazy. Unless you have like an artist edition, then you can.
Well, and if we're kind of, this is a tribute to Night of the Living Dead or like old Village of the Damned, old black and white movies. So it's one of those things too, where it's like, that's a lot of work. And I think, especially where we are in the world, we would probably rather focus our efforts on making more stories than just coloring this one. On the off chance that somebody came to us and was like, we want to give you a dump truck of money to do a color version. That might be different, okay. But it's not on my mind at all to bring out a color version of it.
Okay. And then we got a question for you guys too, it looks like.
It adds to horror, because how many parents and children are in there? Oh, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Is this happening? Is this a worldwide pandemic, these children, or is it segregated to an area? Is it all over? Are the kids turning into monsters all over?
Yeah, that's a plot point that's revealed in like issue, I don't know, 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think it was issue 3 they revealed it. I think.
So I
that
guess we
it's
can go ahead
worldwide.
and talk about it, but yeah, like they find a TV that's working and it's worldwide. It's an inexplicable worldwide phenomenon. And I've said it's so weird that we had the first issue of this released in January, because if 20 years from now people are picking out one of these comics randomly from a cheap bin or something, they're going to assume that we wrote this on the heels of this horrible thing that our world went through, but it didn't. This is just coincidental. And it was as we were hitting the final stages and kind of touching up some word balloons, or just, it was in this world. And I was reading some lines of dialogue that we wrote, and I was like, man, this feels like we wrote it today instead of, years back. So it was a very bizarre coincidence that it came out during the COVID era.
Yeah, it was. We get questions like that every so often. It's like, did you write this during the pandemic? I'm like, no, we were just like looking for toilet paper and water like everybody else. But but no, that is a joke. It sort of reflects is that if we did write this during the height of COVID, we probably would have put in the toilet paper scene just because it's just so weird and
Right.
You could make that
volume
up.
2 to do that. We have volume 2.
Exactly. Because we would have never. I don't think anyone guessed that toilet paper would be the thing. For me, it was weapons, maybe food, maybe. I don't know. It's like because it's like for me personally, it's like when I knew that it was coming down, like we're just buying non-perishable foods for like a good month worth at least, and then some coal. And I told my parents are like more older, like, what do you need coal? I'm like, if electricity and gas goes, you can still cook and stay warm. Unless you're planning to cut a tree down, which there's no trees in the suburbs really that you can do that to. Coal will be the best way you can do it, and there you go. It's sort of like that logical stuff that happens in my brain at least. Like food, warmth, we have shelter, we're all good, right? So it was just weird that people were going after toilet paper and stuff like that. But we would have definitely shoved a scene in there, and then they'll all die because kids will just like eat them and then be all.
But our story moves so fast. There's no scene where they're like, oh, we got to get lunch. Like it happens in a day, right? So maybe a week from now in this world they're talking about that. But like our story starts in the morning. You see a kid and a school bus pulls up at school, and then ends at nighttime. So I think that could be happening in this world, but there's no time to think about it.
Right.
No.
All right, I got another question that I don't think any of the interviewers have asked you guys yet. If Warner Brothers, if one of the horror companies comes to you and hey, I want to turn you guys book into a horror movie or whatever, who do you guys want to play all the characters in it?
Wow.
Well, that's interesting because we used for some of them we used reference with Robin, or we said like, Robin, you don't have to use this 100%, but you can use this type of person. So I could tell you at least for 3 of them, on the nose, but Ted is Ted Raimi. Lawrence is Sam Jackson. Okay. And Sam, the daycare teacher, was Tina Fey.
Oh, okay. So I was wondering.
So it's not like Alex Ross style, like 100%, where like I remember there was an old Hellraiser book that he did where you were like, that's John Cleese, and like you could tell who was who. Yeah. So we have kind of archetypes or like typecasting, but so that's 3 characters anyhow that that we actually thought of actual human beings for.
Yeah, that's a good question, but yeah, we did. That was weird when we sent the references to Robin because we were like, just take it and then do what you want with it. But he never asked. I don't know if he knows who Tina Fey is. I never asked him.
I don't know. He's from Singapore. I don't know if he watched 30 Rock.
I don't know. That's a really good question. It just popped in my head, like because we would send him references that we would be familiar with.
Right.
But yeah, Robin's actually from Singapore, but they have a geek culture and stuff like that, but they don't have 100% access to a lot of things that we have. So we never. Sometimes I forget that, and then it's like these are EC title, covers that we could definitely take in as a jumping off point. It's like I never read any of these. I'm like, right. So let Josh and I send you some references, and then 50 images between us later. Robin's like, stop. I got it. I get it. Stop. Because it's like, oh, you want us to geek out for you? Here we go. But no, it's been one of those weird things where we're trying to when you ask that question, who would play who? We're very open, I think, for that. If anyone out there is like, I want to do a series or a film or whatever, I'm very open. We're very open to any kind of actors or actresses because
right.
There's no in quotations, hero characters, you want to call it that. I know it sounds weird because any story has a hero, but they're not like, go out there, this is the plan, we're going to survive this crap hero. There's no real hero here. There's like we're trying to make them as normal, everyday people as we can. So anyone who can do that, acting-wise, can technically do these roles pretty well. And also likes horror too, obviously, as well. So we're very open to that. And definitely, knock on our doors. We're here all the time, ready for any movie studio.
I am ready to sell out.
Definitely.
All right. If they wanted to do an animated, or they wanted to do an animated series, who do you want to voice everybody?
Oh, wow.
Well, animated might make more sense just because then you could. It's the same as a comic. What's great about writing a comic is that you can do things like have a bunch of 5-year-olds driving a truck. You can do things like have giant action scenes, not having to worry about stunts or people being hurt, that kind of thing.
Right.
So animation would be fantastic. But my league for animation is the king of voices, Mark Hamill. I would want Mark Hamill in there somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark
make
Hamill.
a good Saturday morning kids cartoon too.
Yeah. Hey, if RoboCop, Rambo, and Police Academy can go from R-rated movies to Saturday morning cartoons, stranger things have happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Mark Hamill would be a great Ted, I think. He would be an awesome Ted.
Yeah. A real jerky bad guy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely make him Oh, my God. That's a good thing. I never thought about that. Who would voice who, eh? That's actually a good one. But Samuel L. Jackson for sure, Lawrence. That's like hands down. That's his. That's his voice for sure.
Yeah.
Tina Fey can do herself. Oh my God. Good questions. Any animation studios out there? We're also free to be selling out as well.
They're all watching tonight.
Absolutely. All the time. All the time.
All right, Howard. How did you get started in writing comics in general? Both of you guys, anyways. But how did you get started exactly, Howard?
He's frozen.
We lost Howard.
So sorry, I might turn this one because you asked a question of how I got started in writing.
You're back.
Right?
Yeah.
Back in 06, 7, 6. I started out, my first published work was through Image Comics, After the Cape. It was a mini series I did with Marco Rudy, who went from there to do work for DC and Marvel, doing a bunch of crap. A lot of titles, a lot of amazing writers. But I didn't seriously thought about writing comic books. I honestly can tell you that. I ended up doing that because...
Uh-oh.
So am I cutting? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yep,
we can hear you now.
Howard's got that bad Toronto internet.
It's not hooked up, eh?
Yeah, it's not a good day.
Today.
Okay. All right, let me try to answer this real quick. I got into writing comic books because my wife asked me what I did for fun before we got married, and I was working at a job that I hated. And I said I collected comic books and wrote them for fun. I thought about going into comic books when I was in university, high school, and then that dream died because I grew up. And she told me, like, just keep doing it. Then if it makes you happy, I'm like, that's true. So I ended up writing After the Cape for her, really, because she comment from her manga background, which is, how in the world do superheroes who are like Batman take a punch in the face or go out and get beat up by a gang and then go to work the next day looking normal? Because no one can do that. Know how much training on earth that you're gonna get swell up and you're gonna have you'll be in the hospital. I'm like, that's a good point. And no one dies. I'm like, what they do, but they keep coming back. So after the Cape was built to address her questions, and then I pitched it. Not because I was going, I want to get a book out there. I pitched it
Right.
to see where I was in writing skills. But then it got greenlit. The moment that was really greenlit, I think I don't know, like a couple of months after my first kid was born. So it was like the first time.
Okay.
Worst time, because I was like being a new father, working, and I had read a comic book. I said yes, like any normal human being, like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it right now where I don't sleep anyways. So I was like taking care of a baby the first time, screaming my face, and like, I need to write this with one hand and not drop you with the other. Let's do this. So my writing started from there and continued to do anthologies. I went into mobile games and then story development stuff for toy companies like Bandai and 3.0. I never stayed in comics. I went back and forth to I said video games and mobile games, and did a lot of branding and marketing stuff as well. So it was really outside of what I was doing for work, and I was in HR management for procurement. So I was helping an IT company find people to address projects and figuring out the scope of work for companies and all that. So all this fun stuff. So I decided to leave that and go full time into freelance writing, which was a scary ass thing to do, but so far so good for that. Obviously a little dip here with the pandemic, but it's been one of those things where I'm happy enough that I can be able to do comic books as well as do other things at the same time. That's also fun. So, I can't tell you what I did. Oh man, it's just awful. But I did something for Bungie not too long ago, which was one of those crazy things where like, are you sure you want me? It's like those questions like, why would you deny yourself this kind of opportunity? But I usually ask them like, after knowing the scope of what you want, are you sure that I'm the right guy? Because there's like a million people out there who are way better than me. And I know that. It's like, no, we like your stuff and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, you convinced me, I'm going to do it. I don't think I deserve to do it, but I'm going to do it. But then, it's one of those things where like, I'm actually working on something that's so cool. I can't even tell my kids. Right? So it's one of those moments where you're like, oh man, I'm doing this and having fun and getting paid for it, which is amazing, by the way. So it's been one of those weird things where writing from After the Cape sort of jettisoned me to that world where I can write for a living. So it's been weird, really weird for me personally.
All right, Josh, how'd you get started in this?
Well, I went to film school after high school and learned screenwriting, which is very similar to comic book writing, except, you got to be more singular in your panels in comic books, because in film you can actually have the movement. But otherwise, if you look at a comic script and a film script, very, very similar. And that's why at its best, when it's translated, it works really well, because they're very, very similar in that sense. So I did a number of short films. One that I wrote and directed is actually why I was at San Diego Comic-Con that year and met Howard, is because it got accepted into their film festival.
Okay.
And then I've always been a comic book geek my whole life. And then a number of years back, there was a local publisher here in town, and very similar to the way that Howard and I came up with Damn Cursed Children. It's in conversation, it's meeting people, it's getting to know folks, it's bumping into people at Comic-Cons. And a friend and local publisher liked an idea that I was kind of joking around with them with. And that became a comic book called Zomkies, of which now there's 3 issues of that out in the world. And that is it's funny, we talk about origins. That's a very much more purposefully goofy zombie monkey comic where you see the origin. It's like a toxic waste at a zoo causes this outbreak to happen. It's like Jurassic Park, but with monkeys. So did that. And then everything just kind of, there's a domino effect as the more you meet people, and really a lot of it, not to downplay one's own talent or hard work, but it's being nice and meeting people and saying yes and taking those opportunities. Because then I would, after Zomkies, I knew some people who worked in animation, and I got to write some pitches for DC Superhero Girls, and that's
Oh, cool.
that's an uphill battle because my friends who work for the company, they wrote like 100 ideas and 20 get through, and I wrote 20 ideas and one got through, and I was just thrilled. So that's a episode called hashtag Flash Forward Flash Back, and it's a Flash episode.
Mhm.
A little 3-4 minute cartoon where the joke is it's Flash late for school, but it's a dream come true. My name is on a DC cartoon, so that happened.
That's awesome.
Also recently, an editor that Howard has worked with here in Ottawa named Jack Briglio, he did an anthology called Flip, and so for the second volume of Flip, I have a story in that, and so that and Damn Cursed Children and Superhero Girls all came to be during the pandemic. So I had a very good pandemic. I felt guilty. You don't want to make light of it, but I was like, wow, I had 3 things happen during this pandemic. And then also I have some stuff in a few anthologies. There's a really good digital anthology called Strange Romance, and I got to write this robot romance in that. And yeah, and I'm not like a super full-time writer, but I do it as much as I can, and I love it. And it's almost like every hockey fan wants to play hockey, and every comic reader wants to have a comic book. And I've got to have a few comic books now, and I got to dip my toe into the DC universe now, and working on a few more projects. But it's really. I tell people like it's go to conventions, apply to those anthologies, keep writing, make friends who work on books, and your friends will ask you to contribute to their anthology, and that's how you start building a resume, and that's what I've done in the past 6-7 years.
That's awesome.
I got a question. Okay, I know you guys are comic fans, you guys are comic fans. Both of you guys are comic fans, so you guys collect comics and stuff like that. So who's your guys' favorite character, and who would you want to eventually write them?
Oh man,
Everybody.
Everybody. I'm not picky. Just hire me. Favorite character that I would like to dip my brain story prowess into. I would, it's gonna sound weird. I would like to do it sounds like a cop out. I know it does, but I would like to do something with Spider-Man just because it would satisfy the 9-year-old boy in me.
Okay.
That's for sure. For the more adult, maybe anything with Star Wars. I would do Ewoks. I don't care.
Oh yeah, that's mine. I got a good Ewok story. I was just talking to Howard.
Damn cursed Ewoks.
Yeah, it's the same story.
Exact same story, but with Ewoks. That's all I'm going to do now. The rest of my career, I'm just going to do the exact same story. But no, Dark Horse had a really good anthology, and I would love if Marvel brought that back and just had the opportunity for indie writers to do little 5-page stories or something. Because, man, I've got an Ewok story I would love to do.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. Having like anthology for Star Wars, it makes sense because you can do the non-main character stories, which are no offense to everybody out there, but the more interesting stories.
And Marvel's doing that. The last few years, Marvel has done a number of like weird anthologies with indie creators doing stuff for them. So stranger things have happened in the last couple of years, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat.
I've got same thing for DC. If they were doing like an anthology, I could either do this as like a mini series or like a quick little story. But I've got a Martian Manhunter in my brain, a Martian Manhunter story that I would really love to do. That if somebody came and said we need an 8-page story or we need like a full 22 pages, 20 pages, that's amongst 50 other dreams. I think if I had to pick one, it would be a John Jones story that I have in my brain.
Okay. So I know you guys collect comics and collect. How did you start it, and when did you guys start collecting?
Ooh, I started late though, in high school. Seriously collecting when my friends brought image books into where we ate lunch on the floor in high school in the hallway, and they're like literally whipping out image books. They're like the product, because I know it sounds so bad. I sound so shallow when I say this, but because of the production value, which was on the spinner racks in the corner store, and I was like, what the hell's going on with this? This is like completely like different. It's very like, high polished and stuff. Then I started reading them, and I'm like, this is like the fun stuff I read when I was younger. This is kind of fun, and wasn't because it's really cool. It's literally because it was fun. And then it's like, oh, and then I found out about Image and the founders, and because my friends were really super geeks, and they were like totally educating me within like a couple of lunches about all this stuff, and I ended up going to a comic book shop and getting a membership, and got my first long box within the first week, which was bad because that's how much money I spent in 1 week, which is not a good idea when you start in comic books, my friends. Don't do that. Start slow. So I was like backtracking on stuff that I wanted to get before because I read them. Because my cousin, I had like other relatives who collected comics,
Right.
Cousins and stuff like that. So I would read stuff, or they would show me stuff, but I never collected because they had such a mass collection that I could just go there, hang out for summer, like during summer vacation, and just read my ass off like nonstop. So it was nice of them to allow me to do that, but I never had it. So I would end up backtracking stuff to buy stuff. It was really weird. So I started in high school, and then didn't really stop until after having kids because of time and money. And so I started buying trades. I know it sounds so bad. I started buying trades, but I did. I started buying trades and stuff like that. And then when you get into comic books, you have friends who are really cool and they'll send you stuff. So it's sort of like I have a nice stack somewhere at home that I will be going through before I die, but I haven't read them all. So it's kind of like, did you read my book yet? Nope, but it's in my pile. It's my read pile, not the unknown pile, but into my must read pile. So it's good. So I'm in that stage of my life right now, and thank you for digital access to comic books. You can read stuff online legitly and like that. So I've been doing that too.
And you worked with Valentino at Image, correct?
Yes, at Shadowline. That's correct. Yeah.
So how was that?
It was a unique experience, a very unique learning experience, because it was, as I said, my first time being professionally published. So it's a lot of questions from my end, really, than him, because he was more like, when will you get this done? But I don't know, because it's our first time doing it. So it's sort of like I can only give it sounds so bad. I can only give non-answers to those questions because I've really never done it before. But I learned a lot from that experience, not production-wise, per se, but more like I was asking questions about the business side, like where does it get printed? How long does it take to get printed? What do we need for sure that makes it smoother for them to do their job?
Right.
Because I was more interested in making sure that the entire process wasn't just like, I read the script, I'm done, I'm gonna go sleep now, the comic's gonna come out like magic. I didn't want that, because when I was younger and was thinking about getting into comics, I went to conventions and stuff pre-internet. And everybody freaks out when I said pre-internet. So I was talking to people and asking those kind of questions. So I was talking. Jim DeMatteis was amazing. He wrote me back. I would send him stuff through snail mail, and he would write me back with critiques and stuff when I was like way younger. It was really cool. And it was just like that kind of environment where people who would share stuff, then you learn from there. But because when the internet started blowing up, and then you have the image boards and whatnot, you can ask questions from Pencil Jack to DeviantArt and so forth, right? It was really different because I wanted to make sure that I know what I was getting myself into. Knowing the full project life, this is like the culprit with me talking, full project life cycle, then you know where your part plays into it and how to make it so that everybody's parts makes it easier and smoother. Because if you do it right, everybody can do better and not have to fix your stuff and do their part, because that's the worst thing you can do, right? It's almost like if you're a writer and go, action takes place between this character and this character, and they fight in the hallway, go. But the artist can take that and do whatever. Absolutely. Yeah. But does it make it easier for them? No, because if you backtrack and go, well, actually, I need this, this item in the scene so that works with my story. Forgot to tell you, can you shove it in somehow? Now you're like in this crazy loop that never ends, right? So that's what I learned from that. It was these kind of things when I was doing stuff with them.
And Josh, what brought you to comics? Did you read as a child?
Yeah, I have the like almost since birth reading comics. I just scrolled through to try to find it, and man, the internet's an amazing thing. So Fantastic Four 221 was my first comic book, and I remember it because it has this bizarre, weird cover of the Fantastic Four in the snow fighting these purple, weird, like alien monsters. And my dad just randomly brought that home for me when I was a kid. Like I was like a kid, like I was like 4. And just the most like, Kodachrome romantic sense of comic books. Like I remember that and being like, wow, look at these crazy characters. Look at this thing. And I just went from there. And so when I was a little kid, I was like just old enough to be snobby about having read Mirage comics when the cartoon hit Saturday morning. And then when I was a little older, Batman 89 happened. So I was all on the Batman bandwagon. And Dark Horse Comics was around when I was in like junior high and high school. So all that stuff. And then when I was in high school, like Image Comics is my fault because I bought everything. Like it was just, that was the world, right? So every when Spawn came out and Youngblood and Savage Dragon, and I continue to read Savage Dragon to this day. But yeah, so I'm a lifelong reader, and even if there you go, old school. Even if my tastes change, like I don't just read superhero stuff. I love Bone or Love and Rockets or whatever, but I'm always going to be reading comic books in one way or the other.
All right, I got another question for you guys. Since you guys brought up EC, have you guys read the old EC stuff or for the references and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I've read a lot of it. Even years back, they would reprint them just as single issues, kind of affordable single issues. So I have a handful of those. And then just thanks to the library, especially here in Ottawa, for whatever reason, hopefully every city has this, but we have a very good geeky library with lots of comic books and stuff. So not just recently, like over years, I've read a lot of those old collections as they were published, especially in the past few years. It's been getting a little bit easier to read because even if you can't afford buying them, because some of them are pretty pricey, those collections. But so yeah, I've read a lot thanks to my local library.
You got a cool ass library if they got EC Comics there.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Yeah, well, same here. I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but the library is one of the best, for me at least, I guess, and also Josh, it's like the best place to read comics that you can afford.
In Florida, we have a vast selection of Captain Underpants, and that's about it.
Really?
Oh, really? Well, yeah, we're good here. We got everything. Yeah. One of the highlights of my career too was the local library has the single issues of Zombies on the shelves, and that was
that's cool.
That was fun.
That's better than our libraries down here, man.
I'll say it again. I said Florida. So.
Well,
they may have a brand new version of Infinity Gauntlet, and that's about it. Just not much.
The Ottawa Public Library, you can go on once a month and request 3 books, like new purchases. And I've gotten very good at going on when I remember once a month, once every 2 months, and being like, oh, there's this one I want or that one I want. And it's not all the time, but very often they will pick up a book. And you walk into the one in my neighborhood and they've got like a giant section with comic books and then a kids section with all like kid friendly stuff. But yeah, whoever's buying books at my library, there's a good comic geek there taking care of us for sure. And then you're still supporting the book, right? It's still getting bought. They're still buying a couple copies. So yeah, it's a good system for sure.
It's hilarious. I'm kind of cheaty because our local library is attached to a high school, and there's definitely lots of comic book geeks working that work from the high school at the library because I was like reading Black Science as the trades were coming out, like the same week it came out. It's at the library. I'm like, that usually never happens in any library. Like this is like it just came out this week, didn't it? And I'm like borrowing it. I'm like, I feel guilty and not guilty at the same time. but they have like row upon row about like, yeah, you have the Marvel and DC stuff, but you have all this indie stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. And I asked the librarian, like, you guys have like the most impressive collection of comic books I've ever seen in any library, including my own basement, for Christ's sakes. Like, well, yeah, well, high school kids tell us what to order. I'm like, these are the yes. However you're teaching them, keep doing it because this is amazing. Holy crap! Because it's absolutely nuts, right? So I've been reading stuff from there a lot, and you know, when I tell my friends who live in the same town, like I live in a town, it's like, this is the library you go to. There's a central library which is huge, multi-floor and everything. This is like a one-floor library that I go to. It's like, how good can it get? And then you go to the one time, like, I'm never going to leave now. I'm like, because they have it's just that much material that they put out there for comic book stuff. So it's really impressive, and I love it. And they have like some of the artist editions too, which is insane.
That's cool.
Insane. Why? Where the money? That's like tax money, but why? But that's okay. That's okay. But it's like, because I can't afford an artist edition. My wife would kill me. So I would board up in the library and bring it home. It's like, what is that? It's the artist edition. Clear the food. I'm going to read this book now.
Remember DC put out that, it was really neat. They published it actually like on newsprint, and it was called Wednesday Comics, and it was a bunch of anthology. So they put out a book for that is comically big. Like it's the size of like a folded out newspaper. And so I got that from the library. Not really. I wasn't paying attention. I thought they published it smaller, and I was on my bike. And so we get this thing that's like 3 times the size of a backpack. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this? So I strapped it to the back of my bike, and it was like hanging off the back, like 8 inches. And I took a picture, and I was like, I hope the bullies don't beat me up on my bike ride home from the library with the biggest comic book you've ever seen hanging off the back of it.
You use it as a shield.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I got another question, Howard. Since you've lived in Hong Kong, have you picked up any of the Hong Kong comics or anything? Like collected any of it or?
No, I'm not kidding. No, I haven't. I know people who do, and for anyone who doesn't know, the local Hong Kong comic scene it's called manhwa, which is for comic book.
For comic book. Yeah,
they bust that crap out weekly, and it's insane. It's digitally painted. Sometimes very seldom that they do watercolored covers. It's always digitally watercolored or watercolored covers. Some pages would be watercolored as well, or digital colored, but then inside is, I guess the nicest way to say it's group effort that they make the insides, because this person.
I can be public incorrect. It's like a conveyor belt, pretty much. Where one colors, one inks, one color, one inks. It's like a conveyor belt, pretty much.
It's like making an old Ford car kind of thing. Everybody, that's why. But the name on the cover is only the
one person,
the guy who created the series from day one, right?
Right.
So
it's Tony Wong, and it's everybody and everybody always asks, are we like? Because my last name's Wong too, and they every time they would see your name on the book, they go, "Are you related to Howard?" I go, "No."
You never know if you track it back, but
yeah.
Distant cousins and all. But the thing is, I never collected that stuff. I mean, what I like about manhwa stuff is how they deal with action. They have not yet tapped into that here in North America or in Europe, and I've been for years and like decades. I want to bring that over.
Well, you could be the one. You could be the one person.
Writing it is easy enough. The problem is finding an artist who gets it.
Oh, okay.
That's the part.
I can tell you one that might get it, because I know Art Jim used to work in the industry.
Oh.
Art Jim used to work in the Hong Kong industry. I know that much.
Oh,
he can only do one panel at a time, though. Come on.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. I'm saying, but he could like, if you guys talk to each other, he probably has somebody that's over there that he might have connections over there. You never know. You know what I mean?
Your book would be 24 splash pages.
No,
with just people posing, and only one person in each shot.
because I actually went to a con yesterday and actually saw
Oh
this thing.
shit!
Yeah,
Look at the
saw
size
this
of
thing.
that thing.
Yeah,
That's
saw this
huge.
sitting at a con. Yeah, saw that sitting at a con.
Why don't you show us your full screen there, Jeff?
Well, I zoomed in a little too much on my end, so I
Okay. Sounds
let me pop
personal.
yeah. I can't even
That's
pop
beautiful.
myself out of the damn thing.
That sounds personal too.
That's beautiful. That's huge. Holy crap!
Yeah, it's $70 in Hong Kong money, so it's like $15 in American. So
Wow. Dang. Well,
yeah,
the interesting thing
Some
is,
exchange rate.
yeah,
what's really interesting is that I've talked to people in Hong Kongers who collect the manhwa stuff in Hong Kong,
right.
and especially when you're like, you see a stack of it in their house, like a giant nice stack.
Right.
And I asked him, like, so what do you collect it? Is it for the stories? Like, those stories. Every single one said the story is crap. Everybody tells me, like,
Yeah.
the story is bad. Like, what do you collect it? The cover was really nice. So I'm like, you seriously bought it for the cover? Like, no joke. Like, you're not shitting me because that's like a cop out answer. No, the cover's really nice. I'm like, what do you do with it?
My uncle's a major collector too, and I asked my uncle. My uncle says the same thing. He collects it for the cover and the inside art, and that's it.
Yep. Then this is like, the stories are bad. I'm like,
yeah, stories are straight trash. They always tell us this. Stories are straight trash.
it's just like, but I'm like, but then why do you spend the money to buy and support something that's not good? But that's it's like, I've been doing it since I was a kid. Da 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 da. It's like our version of I can't skip one of the serial issues of whatever run that you're working on, right? So sort of that aspect of that we have in common. But it's absolutely madness that that's the reason why you buy it. I was lucky enough that I was in Hong Kong at a time when they had a exposition about their process and of making one of these books. So they had the pencil art and notes and all that on the artboards and stuff like that. And I'm like looking at them, and I'm like, that's one person there, 2, 4. That's probably a 5th person there because the art says a little shifted it again, and it was just so bizarre and weird. I'm like, this would never fly back home because it's so like it pulls you out so quickly. It's like, what I mean? It's like, let's change the actor every 5 minutes and see if anyone notices it. That's what I felt like, right? So it's like really weird seeing it. Like, don't they see? Because even from the process, you can see it right there in your face that this is not going to work as a flowing, connected story art-wise. But
yeah, my big thing is, how their manhwas are like over there, but I don't think they have they don't have, if they brought an English version of it or English, just English in general, like an English comic, they would look at it, it goes, they would like their version better than, sometimes the cover art's better than the inside art. You know what I mean?
Yes, that is true. I mean, Hong Kong right now is down to unfortunately, two comic book shops that sell North American comic books that are in Causeway Bay, Clark's Comics and Metro. I don't know if did you hear that, or I got cut out again?
You got cut off halfway saying Metro whatever.
So Metro Comics and Clark's Comics are in Causeway Bay. There's the 2 remaining comic book shops in Hong Kong that sell North American comic books. And I always ask them, like, who collects your stuff? Who comes by? It's like, it used to be expats from the world. Because in the Marvel films, more people are interested in the Marvel stuff, and that's cool. Then you have, like, they sell toys and stuff. And it's Metro Comics, which really surprised me because they would carry the most oddball stuff for Hong Kongers. They had the whole run of Scott Pilgrim. And I was like, why do you have a collection of Scott Pilgrim? Because I love that, but who the hell reads that here? Because I want to know, because I want to connect with people. I want to find them and then connect with them. And he's like, I bought it because I wanted to read it first, and then no one bought it since then. And I'm like, that is sad shit. So, I think I got cut out again. Yeah, I got cut. Did I get cut out again?
Yeah, after saying he bought it just because of the one person or something like that, and then it got cut out.
Gone again. Howard's internet hates him.
Back?
Yeah, you're back now. You're back.
Okay. So, anyways, there is a comic scene in Hong Kong. It's not really big. Singapore has a bigger one. They have their own convention for North American comic books. That's
Oh,
Actually,
cool.
I meant to ask you, Howard. Is there so you said Hong Kong isn't a big comic scene, though. There's no con or nothing that happens over there.
There's-
Does it? Is there?
There is a con. It's run by one of
Uh-huh.
the guys who does the manhwas. He owns
Okay.
the convention.
Yeah, it's probably Tony because he's the
think
like
so.
everybody asks me how I compare Tony, who compares to him. I compare him to Stan Lee most of the time but he's been arrested in '98 for like doing some stupid stuff that I heard.
Well, people don't. Okay, is it two guys? I think it's two guys. I can't remember. I think it's two guys
It's
two big guys
Yeah.
in Hong Kong who do comic books. They're not doing bad. They're just like AKA they drive Porsches and stuff like that. So they're
Right.
not like your typical comic book creators. They have a business and they run it really well. You have a convention there called. See, I'm gonna mess it up real bit. I think it's Comics, Games, and Anime or something like that.
I would have named it
Anycon
Hong Kong
or something
Philly.
like that. Animation convention.
Uh-oh. Howard,
frozen. My
This is
comment
so-
was so stupid he got frozen.
Oh my god! Like this is annoying. Hey guys, I'm gonna hopefully if I cut out one more time, I'm gonna leave and come back just in case.
Okay.
I want to give it a shot. If we could cut out one more time.
Okay.
But it is a convention in Hong Kong. It's actually not for North American comic books. It's more of a retail show for video games and the manhwa.
Okay.
Singapore, Bangkok. I don't know about Japan. I've never been to Japan, so that's somebody else. But Bangkok as well as Singapore have a really strong North American comic book scene, cosplaying and the whole 9 yards.
Oh, that's cool. That's good to know.
So yeah, so Singapore, because people are like Singapore, who to be in Singapore? I'm like, well, Singapore, for people who don't know, most of them are trilingual, and English is one of their languages, and their signs are in guess what, English. So you can go there and survive there in English or Mandarin or whatever.
Yeah, Howard, you might want to pop out again. Pop out and pop back in.
Okay, I'm gonna pop out and pop in. You guys keep talking. I'll come back in a minute.
So Josh, that was the issue number 5 of Damned Cursed Children came out. That's 5 of 5, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
What do you guys have planned after it? You going to collaborate on something else, or are you going to go your separate ways and work on stuff? What do you got? You got any projects coming up?
Yeah, we hope to return to the damn cursed world. Howard's been very busy with some stuff, and this lockdown life has been as busy as non-lockdown life for me. It's been very strange, but I have sent Howard along a rough outline and some characters for another story, and he's looking at that, and that's kind of the stage where we're at. So we will work together again. These things take forever sometimes, but we definitely hope to return to the damn cursed world with another story.
Yeah, during lockdown, I Googled pictures of you, and you look like Scott Snyder, and now you look like you're in the 70s Marvel bullpen. So the hair and the stash are COVID related, huh?
Oh my God, I've needed it. So Ottawa is currently in lockdown part 4.
Okay.
And I co-own a cinema here in town, and so we're on day, I think, 73 of our 4th lockdown round with no end in sight. With the current rules, we'll be back in 2 months. We'll be back at the end of July. Where I get my haircut, they get to maybe come back in early July.
Wow.
But then getting an appointment's going to be like, getting boy band tickets. It's going to be like, so I am at my second round of being as shaggy as I've ever been, because you can't get your haircut anywhere. But yeah, so as we speak, good stuff's happening. I'm booked to get my 2 shots, but it takes a bit longer here in Canada because down there you guys are making it all, right? So I'm booked for June and September, where I know in the States it was a much closer window of getting those 2 done. So the end is in sight. My whole thing now is I don't have any grand plans, but genuinely I hope to be able to go and sit at my mom's house for Thanksgiving, which all signs point towards we'll be able to do that. But But yeah, we're still all in lockdown here, so
we can't relate at all. We never. We're in Florida. We never lock down.
Yeah. Nothing weird ever happens in Florida.
I'm not vaccinated. I went and saw Quiet Place 2 today at a movie theater full of people. So, just saying.
Nothing bad could ever happen in Florida.
Yeah, Florida man. Oh, you guys, I bet you guys get a lot of stories about Florida man this, Florida man that, probably up there.
Yeah, quite a bit actually, which is kind of funny. But it's all true, right? It has to be true.
Yeah, pretty much.
For Heather, yes, it is Anycom and Games Expo. Thank you. I totally forgot the name of it.
Yeah.
I should know the name of that, which is weird because
you stayed in. You told me you stayed in Hong Kong for a little bit, didn't you?
I would go to that. I would go there to see friends and stuff and hang out like normal people. And I don't know why they launched a toy called Fullmetal Ghost from Kuno-san, who is the mech designer for Gundam. I was working on his that was a property that he made for himself that then Bandai picked up and 3-0 was working on. And then they launched it when I said that I was going to go away for holidays. And they said, we're going to launch it when you're not here. And so I didn't see the launch of it, but I did a comic book for that. And that was like, I was supposed to be there to do signings, but then they're like, are you going to be here? I'm like, no. No one told me until like literally a week before I was going to fly out. And I was like, I am not going to change my tickets for this convention. I'm sorry. But no, it's a pretty good show, but it's a retail show. You know, if you want like a discounted PlayStation with a lot of like bells and whistles of extra stuff, that's the show you go to, kind of thing. It's like it's never that I want to go get this signed by so and so and get a sketch from so and so. Nah, it's not that kind of show. So it's a weird thing. It's one of, it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, so you were saying, would you want to write manhwas anyways? Would you want to?
Good question. First, I would be doing it with my wife because she's from Hong Kong, so she would have the language and the subtleties that I would need to have someone to bounce off to make sure it culturally right.
I would think it would be better off because you would have you're a comic reader in general anyway, so you would probably make the story flow a little better. Probably.
I hope so. I hope if I do my job right. It's gonna sound weird, but I know manhwa is usually taking place back in a certain time period. But if you try to bring it into modern day times, you fall in that trap of what Shang-Chi was in the 70s. God forbid. No. But I would like to do that though. I would try to bring it to the modern times, and I had this conversation with four people, and they're like, "How the heck would you do that?" I'm like, "I have ideas, but a lot of people don't like it when I present it to them because of the lack of a market for it." No.
All right.
Am I back? Okay.
Libraries, terrible.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. For anyone who asked if I was on Rogers Network, yes, they suck right now, and they always suck when I do this for some reason. Anyways, they're like the biggest network in Canada. I don't know, whatever. But if I would like to write something like that, yes, I would like to write it in English though.
Yeah, that's what I was curious. Yeah.
I would recommend it in English for one major reason is to share that kind of storytelling, that kind of art, as well as the visual storytelling, because it's different.
I would. I know I would be interested in it because I remember growing up reading both, like looking at both. You know what I mean? I would look at my uncle's collection, and then because he collected those, and I never knew what Marvel and DC was until I was like older, a little older, like 5, 6. You know what I mean? When I was young, when I was a kid, all I would know was those. Like he would hand me one, and I would look through it. I go, oh, I guess all comics are like that. You know what I mean? And then got older, found out about Marvel, DC, and everybody else. So.
Yeah, well, it's definitely I know what's kind of interesting when you say that is the fact that like Long Feng Moon, Feng Wan, sorry, forget how it's called.
Tiger Dragon.
Thank you.
Tiger Dragon Gate. I got you.
Yeah, I'm saying Cantonese. And then how do you say that? How's it in English? Feng Wan is
But yeah,
Holy crap.
Tiger Dragon,
It's not-
because that's the one you're talking about, Tiger Dragon Gate, or
Yes,
it's
it's one of them. And
yeah,
then
it's one of those.
and then Teen Ha and all that stuff. They basically
Right.
they're all the semi same. Like
Yeah.
so
They're all like the Bruce Lee type characters that are got some special powers or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
But that's the thing that what people don't understand is that you can definitely make a bridge from that aspect to the Marvel and DC characters.
Right. But I'm like like everybody's saying Shang-Chi. I'm wondering if how Cantonese says Shang-Chi. It sounds like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Shang-Chi. That's why I'm wondering if the person that came up with the name like overheard like Cantonese people saying something and then hey, that sounds cool.
Maybe. But you know what? It is what it is. I know a lot of people hate it's like, oh my god, it's kind of racist, and I'm like, it is and it's not. It was made during a time period where things were different.
Right.
Same with Luke Cage. Absolutely the same time. The thing is, instead of making them into villains, Marvel turned them into heroes. So we have to take that aspect with take that aspect first. That they decided to go on a limb to do it that way. They could have made.
Yeah, Shang-Chi's father was even more racist. If you really think about
well,
it.
that was very, very part of the time period.
Right.
Absolutely. Have they learned from that point? Yes. Marvel and DC has continuously tried to be on the ball on that for sure. It's not great. I mean, if we dig back in time in any time, even like the film, like the original Superman serial series. That was, or the first animated Superman, the black and white one. That was crazy racist, right? So the thing is,
I remember that.
Yeah, so you have to take it from that time period. Like this is what they deemed okay back then. But have they learned from that point? The most important thing is, have they learned from that point? Now, if they didn't, that's not cool, obviously, because then you should know better. But at that moment, I understand why that happened. But at the same time, as I said, they made them to heroes instead of making them to like a 2-bit villain for somebody to beat up on. Like honestly, they could have made Luke Cage into a villain who got his ass beat. Same thing with Shang-Chi, be all racist comments, and then here we are, right? So at least they're not. Then that's that's my standpoint for that aspect of it. And it's not perfect, obviously, right? What they'll do with the movie. I mean, somebody asked if am I excited about it. I am excited to see what they do with it because in story-wise, in Marvel, as of late, not great what they've been doing. They've been trying to figure out what to do with him, and I get that because it's a hard thing to do. It's like his power is martial arts, and other people can do a lot more. So let's give him some powers that to see what This just it seems like they were just throwing powers on him to see what would stick and what would work. But that's not really the heart and soul.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, that's not the heart and soul of what Shang-Chi should be about. It's not about the powers. It's never about the powers.
I got a question for both of you. If they came to you to write a new Shang-Chi series, would you want to write it, Howard and Josh?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm not like Howard, where Howard seems to be like, oh, you shouldn't hire me for this. No, I'll write My Little Ponies. I'll write Power Rangers. But yeah, for sure. And even if it was a character I didn't know a lot about, I would just research and find some stuff about it. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would write Shang-Chi. I definitely would change a lot of. I would try to change a lot of things to see if the editors would be cool with it, because I would. I don't know. Update him would be the word. Not just him, but the whole 9 yards, because
revamp.
Yeah, because if you think about it, especially now and today, people we're literally are one world. We are one world, right? I mean, there's people who immigrate and then grow up in different countries and whatnot. If you dig into, I'm not a big reggae fan at all. I have a friend who's actually Chinese, and he told me, he's like, "Did you know reggae started because of a Chinese woman?" I'm like, "That hell are you talking about?" And then he gave me his documentary. I can't remember her name. I feel like an ass, but she had a record store plus studio that helped develop reggae. I didn't know. How would I know that, right? But the thing is, that's what happens, right? So the thing is, they shouldn't say he's going to be like stuck in the middle, stuck in East Asia, and that's his mentality and his whole upbringing. It's not. I see him being more worldly, especially if you even take his father as an archetype. He would not just lock him down into, you're going to be in this part of Asia and that's it, because that's how it's going to be. He'd be going around different parts of the world learning. If it's just martial arts alone, he'd be going in different parts of the world learning different things. Not just in martial arts, right? So he'll be in North America for a bit. He'll be whatever. Therefore, he'd be more worldly, right?
Well, Marvel needs to reach out to you, because I would like to see a story, Shang-Chi story like that.
How cool would it be if Marvel created their own version of Mortal Kombat? A big tournament, and here comes Shang-Chi to win the tournament.
To go to town.
Yeah.
What are you smoking, Randall?
Oh my
But
god!
honestly, it'd be nice to see you guys at least write. I remember picking up the cape and I didn't know it was the same Howard. You know what I mean? I thought it was a different Howard when I picked it up.
Really?
The same person, children. Yeah, I picked up the. I'm like, and then the guys at the shop told me, "Oh, yeah, it's the same Howard." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
See, he is smoking something.
Yeah,
Howard and I were jokingly talking about a Marvel property. So yeah, we have ideas that if Marvel came to us, we got some obscure stuff we would love to do.
Right.
Like I think that's the greatest stuff when they we're Canadians. Give us Alpha Flight. We could do that. I would like to do an Alpha Flight story.
That's awesome.
All right. I got one. Let's see. Who do you guys want to write for DC?
Oh, that for me, Martian Manhunter. I have a Martian Manhunter story. I would really love to get out there for sure.
Sorry, what was the question? I cut out, I guess.
Yeah. DC. If you had to write for DC.
Okay.
Batman
or Howard. I also love Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. I would love to do a sitcom kind of style comic with them. I reread some of the old G.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen stuff recently, and it totally holds up. Like it. Sometimes you worry because like you read comics from when you were a kid, and sometimes you're like, "Oh, this is terrible."
You probably have to kill Tom King first to write either of the characters.
Yeah, he sure loves wrecking Booster, like not in a bad way, but he likes putting Booster through the ringer. So
yeah, and everybody and every other character.
Yeah. But no,
I gotta ask you a question too. I gotta step back 1 second. You guys are talking about that now. Damn Cursed Children, as that is your creator-owned property, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Is that the way you want to go for the rest of your career, whether you do this full time or not, or do you want to work for Marvel or DC?
Well, it's one of those things where you look back and if I was born in the 70s, like a whole
which I
different,
was.
I was born in the 70s as well. If I was a grown up in the 70s, I should say.
Right.
There's these stories that are incredible. I believe, I think his Jim Shooter was like 17 and sent in scripts and was working in comic books.
He started writing Legion of Superheroes when he was 14.
14? That's insane. So that used to happen. Like you used to be able to, almost the same way as like if you're applying for like a poetry anthology or something, you used to be able to do that. Now you can't. Like you cannot send in your Batman story or your Captain Marvel story. You can't. And this is nothing new. This might be the last 10 years. The only way to get in is to do your own stuff, get noticed. And I believe with Robert Kirkman, it was like, oh, you did a bunch of independent stuff. Now you can write Ant-Man. I think that was his thing for Marvel. Yeah. So that's the thing. So you can't even think about it really, because, when you have Joss Whedon and J.J. Abrams and these people writing those comic books, you don't got a shot. But what you might have a shot at is you just do your independent stuff. And then one day you're at a convention and some editor goes, oh, hey, I read Damn Cursed Children. That's really good. Would you be interested in? And that's what happened with Howard. Like Howard wrote an Iron Man comic, and he did not submit to Iron Man. He wrote other things, and then an editor saw his stuff, and he got to write an Iron Man comic. So I think both of us for sure would love the opportunity to write for the big guys, but we're doing indie stuff for now, and that's enough work as it is. Getting Damn Cursed Children out there almost killed us. So, but like I said, I got to write a Flash cartoon, and maybe somebody will see that Flash cartoon and go, "Oh, hey, we're doing some more stuff. Do you want to pitch a story to a Masters of the Universe cartoon or a Mortal Kombat cartoon or whatever?" So that's kind of the world we're in. Is focus on your independent stuff. Do the best you can, and that might lead to getting an invite to a bigger property.
Yeah, I create comics myself. That's why when you guys were talking about writing for Marvel or DC, that confuses me, because I grew up in the 70s, and in the early 90s, just like you said, I used to submit creative ideas, and they used to say, "No, we want to see what you're doing, what you want to do with Batman." And I pretty much said, "Fuck you. I don't want to write Batman. I want to write my own stuff." And so Image and Dark Horse and Marvel and DC sent me all my rejection letters saying the same thing. But now it's reversed, because, if you have Daredevil or Batman even listed once on your pitch, they'll throw it in the garbage, because they don't accept solicitations.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But the idea is what I was getting at. There was kind of a back alley question there. What I really wanted to get was, you said Howard worked for did an Iron Man issue. Josh, you did some stuff for the DC girls, superhero girls. How much control did you have over your creative? Did editorial dictate what they wanted from you? And see, because that's it's kind of what I see, is editorial has a lot of power. And unless you're a Tom King, or unless you're a Grant Morrison, or whoever, Donnie Cates, are you really getting your ideas on paper? Or very serious question, would you rather have Damn Cursed Children be mediocre success financially, but still rewarding artistically? Or would you like to be a shill for Marvel or DC?
A shill.
Because I'm the guy in the panel. I still buy Marvel and DC, but I hate everything that, growing up in the Bronze era, the real bullpen and the real artistic, I just see everything as to me, Marvel is Disney and DC is Discovery Channel. And I see that stories and events and covers and artists and writer selection is based on money,
deadline,
whatever your political or social agenda is for the month, which changes every day, and all the other bullshit, instead of just being cool, entertaining, Image type comics that Howard Wong picked up. That maybe the stories weren't so good, but they excited you when you picked them up. So that's all. I'm the devil here in the that if I had the choice, I would never pick up a corporate comic ever again, and I'd rather pick up your comic. So
yeah, well, like I remember going to a panel at Comic-Con, and it was for Hellboy, and it was Guillermo del Toro and Doug Jones and Mike Mignola, and they were telling these stories of how it took them so long and the powers that be coming back to them. And it sounds like a joke. It sounds like a bad sketch of them going like, and you just picture these people who had never read a comic book, had no idea who Mike Mignola was, maybe didn't know who Guillermo del Toro was at the time,
Sure.
And their notes were genuinely like, does he have to be red? Does he have to smoke cigars?
Right.
Can we take hell out of the title?
Right.
And they kept fighting that. And that's why that movie took 7 or 8 years to get made instead of one.
Mm.
So for Damn Cursed Children, what was great about Source Point Press was that I was genuinely waiting for the same thing. I was waiting for Howard to come back and be like fill in the blank is interested, but the monsters can't be children. We can't have this scene. We can't have that scene. We can't have a female and a 50-year-old black protagonist. I was waiting for that. And with Source Point Press, we just got away with horror story murder we didn't get censored. We didn't get a note saying you can't hit the kid in the head with a coffee mug. We didn't get a note saying you can't run over that kid. So we got away with all this stuff. I like a lot of stuff coming out of Marvel and DC in the past couple of years. Gwenpool, Dr. Aphra, the current Daredevil run that Chip Zdarsky's doing is really good. But you're totally right, where there's a reason why Brian K. Vaughan, who is maybe my favorite writer the last couple of years, there's a reason why Saga and Paper Girls are over at Image. And I have a feeling Brian could be writing X-Men or Fantastic Four if he wanted to, but he has made that choice, and I'm sure he's still doing very well. But sure. Brian hasn't done a mainstream book in a very long time, and I bet you that's why. I bet you he's like, no, I'd rather Paper Girls be exactly what I want. And so it's a hard choice, and it's the kind of thing where it's like, if Howard and I joke frequently because if the most sellout, awful Hollywood filmmaker came to us and was like, we're going to give you each $3 million, but totally ruin the damn Cursed Children movie. That would be hard to step away from. And when we had Max Brooks as a guest at the Mayfair a couple of years ago at the Mayfair Theater, lovely guy. And we were talking about comics and a lot about this kind of conversation. And he said, the only thing that the World War Z movie has to do with the book is that there's zombies in it and it's on Earth. But I got a very big paycheck, and I'll get a very big paycheck for the sequel, and I'm going to get to go do a bunch of other independent stuff because of that.
Sure.
So, I'm not strong enough to turn down a giant paycheck, but in the world that we're in, I'm very glad that we're doing the book with Source Point Press for sure. That's my long answer for that.
Can you get back issues of the book from Source Point?
Yes, you can. There's you can actually, even like any comic book shop out there, they can actually do back orders through Diamond as well. What Source Point Press will do, we'll ship them directly to Diamond, and then
I got it all in the link below.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Jeff.
You're good.
Oh, no worries.
The Source Point
my local shop, you were sold out, all your issues. They had no back issues, which is good.
Awesome. That's good. I love that. I'm sorry for you, but I'm happy to hear that. You know what? Having worked, like I just once, to be honest with two amazing Marvel editors, and I was working with the Marvel Hong Kong Disneyland creative people as well. It's definitely a different process in developing a story and stuff, because you are working with somebody else's toys, first and foremost. You are, and you take that childhood stuff. I mean, when you went to play with your friends, well, because we're a little bit older, in the sandbox, in quotation, the G.I. Joe toys or Star Wars toys, and you share your toys, you don't go, I'm going to pop up his arm because it's not mine. You're not going to do that. Right. But you'll do certain things, and you always ask, can I do this? Am I okay? Do you mind if I do this? Yeah, can I, launch him into the air and see what happens? Whatever it may be. So I asked a lot of questions when I was, this is like literally before I had a real good concept of a story. This is a list of characters I would like to possibly use. And there was a lot of them they said no to, and then they would give me reasons as to why. And I'm like, I was never like, oh, that's awful, that's stupid. They should have this. They should let me use this character. It was never that, because I have no idea what their long game is for character X, Y, and Z. I don't, because I'm not privy to that. So I understand it from a business standpoint and a story standpoint. So once we nailed down the timeline for the story that I did and how these characters exist in that time period, then I was able to craft something that I was pretty happy with. Were there some changes? A little bit here and there. But it was very organic for us, because even when I created a new hero, her name's Arwen Wong, which is actually named after my eldest daughter. That's cool. Surprise! But the funny thing was,
her armored suit, me and the artist, we purposely made it different from Iron Man, because Iron Man was in her story because it was Iron Man's story. So we didn't we don't want to go to red and gold, because then there'll be like red and gold everywhere, and they'll get confused, and it would kind of can be muddled, right? So we gave her a specific different color purposely, because it was a prototype suit anyways. But when it went up the food chain, Joe Q chimed in. It's like, nope, it should be Tony Stark's colors, because it's made from his company, so you should definitely use it. Don't worry about the color. He gave us reasons why. It wasn't like, no, you can't do it. That's how it is, right? They always give us a reason why, because they would ask us too. They would always ask me, like, even story wise, like, why is this character interacting with this character? Why do you have that happening? How is the relationship? Is it like a okay relationship? They're happy with each other. They're going to be civil with each other, or they're going to have like some kind of beef that we don't know about that you want to put into the story. It was always those kind of things. It was never like no or yes. They always ask why you did something, or why you want something to be a certain way. It's very seldom where they said no, and which was like no, certain characters I can't use because of continuity, issues and stuff like that. And because we're working with the Disney stuff, with certain things we couldn't show from the Disney park because it was based on the first Marvel theme park attraction in a Disney park. So there are certain things I thought, okay, I'm going to integrate this element from the park into the story, and he's like, no, you can't do that because of there's be a lot of issues of going back and forth, whatever, between different corporations and whatnot. So there were things that the no's were like not bad no's. They were like, it made sense for them to say no. And then when they asked me questions as to why I wanted something, if I didn't have a good answer for it, which God thank you, I did not have that issue. If I had a bad answer for something, I'm pretty sure that would become a no, because there would be no reason for it to exist. And it goes for, I think, any company with any licensed property. It's the same thing. I worked on some really ridiculous stuff. I worked on a Minion toy from Despicable Me. And I had this like binder. I was like literally like this thick of what you can and cannot do with a property from Universal Studios. And it was like, you can't make them do this. You can't make them look like this. You can't make them say this. And I'm like, I'm writing the user manual and having some of their and making up certain lines for them to say. So I had a dictionary. Literally a Minion dictionary that I had to follow, which is totally makes sense because it's their world that I'm using. I'm not building more onto it. I'm just taking their world and then applying it to a toy that had a fart gun, which was hilarious. So it was one of those moments where you're like, I get it. If they say no to this because I'm trying to see if they can be okay with me saying for Dave to say this line. If they say no, I totally get it because it's not my character. I think he can say it because it makes sense to me, but maybe they know something, something that I don't know, and they can share it with me, which it happened all the time. It gets stupid sometimes to the point where I made a suggestion which wasn't part of my job, which was like the fart gun. Is it just like one sound? It's like, yes. I'm like, that is not a smart move. You should have one where you can power it up and let one rip. And then stopped the meeting, and the meeting became about farts after that for like a good an hour and a half, which was hilarious. And then people were asking, was there any fart sounds in the movies? I'm like, honestly, can't remember, but I wish there was. I hope so. I think so. Yeah, it had a fart gun, so it had to have some. So then we're talking about that and stuff like that, but it was all within that world, right? So even when you go outside of comic books, it's the same thing. And it's the same thing for video games too. You add your own stuff to it, but it has to be within that parameters of that world. If you don't like it, if you go, it's restricting my ability to tell a good story with these characters, then you go outside and leave and do your thing. If one of the best examples, and it's one of the great series, actually, if you've never read it, definitely go after it, guys. It's the Kurt Busiek stuff for Astro City. They're completely archetypes of things that you would know for sure, where he definitely I'm guessing, I don't know this, I don't know him, that he probably pitched in the past and didn't go through, and it's like, well, I'm going to do it my way then. I'm going to show what I can do with these kind of archetypical characters that we all know and love. If you look at Invincible, same thing with Invincible. Now that Invincible, I hope everybody watched it by this point. You see the archetype characters as well. I'm like, yeah, they're there too. Like, you definitely can't do that stuff for Marvel and DC. So It's the same thing. So people who go in and out of the big two or licensed properties and back into and then go into indie comics where they have full control. It's just for that. You definitely have a different way of playing, right? I like both personally. I like the freedom of indie comic books because, like what Josh mentioned, we can do what the heck we want and get away with children getting run over by a car. And not have a question of this cannot be done because this is not in our wheelhouse of what we can show and all that. We just go to town, right? And you let it go. When you get into places where you have restrictions, honestly, that shows you how much of a good creator you are, both artist and writer. Because if you can't make it work within the restrictions, that tells you that you might have a need to looking back into your skills, to be honest. Because it applies to everything else in the world. Sports have rules, guidelines. You can't break them. You break them, you get a foul or you get a card in your face, right? So it's essentially the same thing as that. If you drive a car, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be running a red light, right? Sort of the same thing. So there are parameters in the world that we exist and we use today. Hopefully we follow them. So it applies the same thing for comics or video games or toys. If you can work within those parameters and make it work, then you're in cloud nine. Like when the work I did for Full Metal Ghost, I was doing story development. I was not there to write a comic book, not at all. It was story development for the property for like all media. So where they take the world building that I did, the general story arc, and then they can do whatever they want with it, and I won't get credit for it because I'm the back end guy. But then when Kuno found out that I wrote comic books, it's like, can you do a promo comic for the launch? I was like, yeah, I can do that because I know the story because I did it, and that's fine. And I did that, and there were some things in the story that I wanted to do, but they said no because he was not going to launch a certain aspect of a toy until later. So I took it out, which makes sense because you're not going to promote something that doesn't exist, if that makes sense. And then we threw in the thing that was a special chase item that I'm like, when I found out, I'm like, we can stick that in instead, which makes more sense because that's one of the things you're promoting at the launch. So let's put that into the story. So you work within the parameters to make it work for the company as well as yourself, because if you don't like what you're doing, making up stuff for big companies, definitely stay away from them. Stay in an indie, and then you have you have no parameters at all to constrict what you really think would be the best thing for your own story. So it depends how you see it and how you work it personally. So that's what I said when you say if I want to write Shang-Chi, I'm like, I have a lot of ideas. Will it fly with what they have planned? Maybe not. If it doesn't, then I have to find a way to work with them and then make it work for both of us.
Right.
So that kind of thing.
Well, I got another question that actually Brian actually brought up a pretty good idea of he actually gave me the idea for this question. Would you guys want to cross over with Something's Killing the Children? Would you guys want to cross over with them? If you guys could.
I cannot tell a lie. I have no idea what that book is.
Because when I read it, I'm like, when I first got that book and read it, I'm like, interesting. But would you guys like, if it's about premise of something's in the forest that's killing the kids pretty much. That's the premise of the story. But would you guys want the damn cursed children to cross over with them? If there's some way for that universe and your universe to cross over, would you guys want that to happen?
I mean, never say never, but like I said, I must admit I have no connection with that book and don't know it at all. So
right. I got you. Because he brought it up pretty because I'm wondering if they overheard you guys talking or something and had something's killing the children and damn cursed children. So
Well, you know what? I would
just
definitely
a name mashup.
I definitely would entertain it and have if they're open for a conversation, definitely for fun, even if it's not a serious continuity thing, just for shits and giggles for ourselves to see what would happen if we mash up our ideas and have a writer's room kind of thing. Yeah, I'm definitely open for stuff like that. And considering who they're published with, I mean, I really dig what Boom is doing, and I've known Ross freaking forever. Mostly online, but I did meet him I met him in person in 2007. Holy shit. That's a long time ago. So I met Ross before Ross Ritchie became a churn as of late. So I would love to do that just to have the experience of how they do their thing, to be honest with you. And then the second love would be to see how it would be to work with those kind of creators who built a great gravitating series to people. I mean, I have it sounds so bad. I haven't read it yet because I have my trade at this point at my local comic shop, which I can't go to because, like Josh, we're in lockdown 55 out of whatever. So we can't go out and do stuff or buy stuff that's non-essentials, and comic books are non-essential. Bastards. They are. So I haven't read it yet. I want to. That's the last thing I want. I'm pretty sure once I get to the comic shop and then go, how much do I owe you guys? I'm like, can I pay you in installments because I don't have that kind of cash right now. But it definitely open to that kind of stuff and to anyone who wants to talk to us. We're like, it's never like, no, it's pure. It's not like, does it make sense for us to do this? Will it be fun for us to do this and fun for the readers? If it's like no to any of that, if it's like, it'd be fun for the readers, but we're going to hate working on it, we probably might go no. But it's fun. If it's fun for everybody, then why the hell not, right? I mean, it's one of those things where it'd be interesting when you have crossovers, I mean, if we throw our war...
Crossovers isn't in my brain, but if Paramount came to us and were like, we want to do a Damn Cursed Children Jason Voorhees crossover, I'd be like, yeah, we could figure that out. That's more like, we're not going to go to them with that. But if the powers that be came knocking at the door and said, we want to pay you guys to do something pretty cool. Like it's not on in our plan, but yeah, like Howard said, it's just like we'd be open to ideas for sure.
Right.
How about a Marvel crossover? It could be the Punisher kills the curse of damn children.
That'd be great. Well, I do love the Punisher Archie crossover, so that would be.
Yes.
How about a soap opera crossover? Susan Lucci starring in All My Cursed Children.
Yes, that would be hilarious. But it has to have all the same dramatic pauses and the cliffhanger stuff.
That's right.
Has to have that.
It would just be like a one-page comic of like a soap opera, like with like a romance, like a couple fighting, and then the last couple pages is just kids coming in the windows and killing them all. Just they're in the world.
That'd be hilarious. We'll make it happen somehow for sure.
Have you guys ever seen the horror movie with Nicolas Cage called Mom and Dad?
Yeah, we screened it at the Mayfair actually.
Okay. It reminds me of your premise. I haven't read your book. And yes, there was, they didn't turn into monsters, but in this particular movie, spoiler, every parent in the world has the deep desire to murder their own children.
Well, as soon as I heard the premise of this book, it kind of reminded me, even though it's smart that you made the monsters, not zombies, because it immediately made me think of Cooties.
Cooties. Yeah.
Well, especially in horror and superhero books and everything, there's no original ideas. It was just recently. I forget what instigated the conversation, but Neil Gaiman was talking about. I think a fan came up to him and said, "I have a really good idea, but it's kind of like a dream idea, or a really good idea, but it's with a death character idea." And he said, "He's like, no, do it," because he goes, There's other characters before I did death. There was other death type things. And in horror, especially like before Damn Cursed Children, like there's Village of the Damned, or there's Cooties, or there's whatever. And there will be more to follow. Like because there was one doesn't mean there's not going to be more. So yeah, whether there's stuff that we have heard of or that we haven't heard of, that's fine. There's lots of good horror where, there's only, whether it's slasher or zombie or vampires. So there's all kinds of stuff in the same wheelhouse, but it's all the little differences, the little fingerprints on it where Cooties might be similar or Mom and Dad might be similar, but our characters are different and our style is different. And so yeah. And it's not that anybody's ripping each other off, just happens. I love it in Hollywood where Armageddon and Deep Impact or Ants and Bugs Life come out right away. Nobody ripped each other off because like you look at like those just happened, and they came out at the same time. So I'm sure in another few years there'll be another Scary Kid comic book or movie, and that's cool.
Well, children are monsters anyway. So
Exactly. Children are terrifying. That's why people keep on doing this.
so it wasn't a stretch, horror or otherwise.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, I've kept. If you got, do you guys got any more questions for him, Anthony and?
I've got one.
Randall? Okay.
Jeff, you kept taking a lot of my questions, so
Okay.
but I managed to get one. I managed to keep one. You didn't.
Okay.
You didn't steal this one.
The best for last.
It's the best for last. As writers, I mean, there's been with some of the questions they were asking you, like what characters you would like to write. You know, what would you like to do, like what publisher, whatnot. The most important for me is what artist would you like to collaborate with? Like, who's your favorite artist that you're like, oh, I would love to work with this artist, and you know, maybe like for this type of character or this type of series, or you know, whatever you have, whatever thoughts or ideas you have on that.
Ouch. Oh,
God,
man.
well, if you're talking just like it'll never happen, but dream artist, it would be Mike Mignola. Like it would be Mike Mignola for me. But it'll never happen. But like if you're just talking like dreams, that's
yeah.
That's a tough one for me. If it's like never happened, want to be easier because like between Josh and myself, we have a lot of friends who are artists and writers and letters and colors and inkers as well, right? So it's sort of like, do I choose a friend or not?
That's why you say Mike Mignola.
Yeah, I know. Freaking hell, right? Hell, you. That's a good question. I did work with one of my friends, but what we did. I did a anthology with Asian. Holy crap! I just brain farted his last name. Help me here.
Fona.
Thank you. Oh my God, Runaways. Jesus Christ. And Miss Marvel. Yeah. Ugh. I also did a children's illustrated book with him too. So that was interesting. And it's different working with a friend who's an artist. And I know he's well known and stuff like that in the comic book world and stuff. But it's different when you're working with a friend and seeing them as a friend. Because I forget, and it sounds bad, and I guess in a way that I forget that they're like within that world, this interesting geek world that, they're like ex-artists, whatever. And I would like talk to them like normal and hang out with them normal. And then people come up, I'm like, why is people coming up to, oh yeah, right, they're getting something to sign. And I'm like standing in their way. I'm just hanging out and shooting the shit. But there's some people I do want to work with for sure. I mean, you know what? One artist I can say, this is not that I don't want to work with any other artists, but I want to work with Marco Rudy again. Because I started my comic book career, if you want to call it that. It's not really a career. I'm not solidly in comic books. With him, to see how we would work together and what we would do together now that's been since 2007, man. So it's just to see, not if it's going to be great or famous or anything, just to see how we would do it because we've learned so much from the beginning of time and when we started in comic books and now to see what we would do with it. That would be the one artist I would like to before I die, for sure. And I have friends that I would like to work with just because it sounds bad, just to hang out and make shit, to be honest. I mean, when I did it with Adrian, I was hanging out at his condo and we're having burgers and fries and joking and doing stuff because it was sort of just, it sounds bad. Sort of like what you do in high school. You geek out, have fun, make comics, right? So that's really what we did. So like it's that kind of atmosphere that I like when you work with friends who are artists is when you're like, geographically in the same location, of course, right? We can do kind of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, definitely want to work with like a lot of friends that I know of. But for Josh's take on They Never Happened, wow, that's a tough one. I would say Mike as well, but I don't know. That's a good question because now I'm like flooding my head with ideas of who I would get, and like some of them are not even alive, so it's not really good. I'm going to leave that one blank for the impossible one because it might be possible. You know what? Screw that. I'm going to say this right here, right now, that Josh possibly will, before he dies, do a comic book with Mike Mignola because nothing's impossible. I think it's possible.
It could be a short story.
Yeah,
exactly.
You heard it here first.
It could be one bloody panel, but hell with it. I think it's going to happen. Because knowing Josh and how his life goes in the geek world, I'm pretty sure he's going to come back one day. 5-minute walk out from my table, come back. I got a Mike Mignola comic I did just now. And I'll be like, I hate you so much, but sit down. It's cool.
But it's like Howard said, it's tough because especially in the past few years, I've just been lucky enough to make friends with a lot of people. And like Howard said, you forget that they're nerd famous until you see them put up a drawing and it gets 50,000 likes. And you're like, oh yeah, Nick Bradshaw's famous. I thought that's just the spare room I stay in when I'm on the East Coast, you know? But yeah, like any friend I have, I'd love to work with. I got to know Dan Parent a little bit. We're kind of internet friends and Comic-Con friends the last couple of years. And
Awesome.
I would love to have a Archie style something. He's such a lovely guy and a talented guy, but yeah, like, so, you know, I could say that of everybody I know.
The idea just popped in my head with all of your convention stories. I feel like if you teamed up with Dan and Dan got to draw like this Archie style convention stories, like that would be so much fun.
That is a good idea.
You know, like,
done.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be neat. Josh Stafford's memoirs.
The best gift you can ever get a comic nerd is that Dan does like drawings and of a friend of mine who's a giant nerd for Archie her whole life. She's not even a big comic geek. She just loves Archie. And I don't think she knew that artists did this kind of thing, but I got him to do a portrait, like an 8x10 portrait. And we gave it to her for her birthday. And she's not the kind of person who normally gets emotional. And it wrecked her to see herself in Archie style. And yeah, so Dan's a lovely guy. I would love to, now I'm going to, next time I see Dan, be like, hey, I got an idea.
Do it. Do it. Yeah.
Anthony, got anything else for them? All right. Well, thanks for coming, guys. I kept you guys long enough. Almost 2 hours.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, for almost 2
We
hours.
gotta do it again.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll hit you guys up later for other Extreme Nerd Tables. You never know who's going to be on. You never know if Howard and Josh are going to be on with us and just shooting the crap for nerd stuff. You never know. So thanks, guys, for watching.
Thanks, guys.
You. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Ooh, done. Let's click. Let's keep right. Yeah, there we go.